I'm gonna say you're like the Oprah of YouTube with interviews.
Everybody gets a car. I was gonna say Hunter x Hunter, man. I appreciate it.
One of my favorite animes of all time.
Fantastic choice.
I love you.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the CouRage and Nadeshot Show. Sadly, I know we're back remote, but it's okay because I can already feel the love between these three screens right now. Folks, today we are joined by someone of absolute legend, and I don't say that anytime we have a guest on. This man has done the unthinkable. He has joined this podcast and has immediately become the most handsome person on your screen. Matt and I dropped the 2 and 3. Typically, that's not the case. It is the legend himself, MatPat. As you guys know, over 25 million subscribers across all of his channels, which includes Food Theorists, Film Theorists, GT Live. His videos just surpassed 5 billion. Billion with a B views on YouTube. The man's been around for over a decade. Some say he might be father time. He's figured out the way to age without getting older looking. MatPat, welcome to the show. It's great to have you here, man.
Man, what an amazing intro. Jeez, I appreciate you doing all that math for me, too. I was taking notes over here, so that way I can put it on my resume.
I try, man. I try. No, honestly, this is an episode I've been so looking forward to for many, many reasons. One, because I get to pick your brain. Two, because you have done so many things that I find so interesting that transcend just being your everyday YouTuber that I definitely, plan to ask you about through here. I want to quickly mention as we open this that the last time that I saw you was about 5 months before COVID, 4 months, actually 3.5 months before COVID, was at the YouTube Creator Summit.
Yep.
In Palm Springs, and you interviewed Susan, which was anytime that creators get to have a chance to interview someone like that at YouTube, it's always an interesting one. But I think you did a great job there. That was a really fun event and a good time. I still have my wonderful robe I got from there. I don't know if you got the goodie bag as well.
Right, YouTube makes some quality robes, man.
They do. They always give the robes, dude. I think I've had 3 from them now.
I think what was it, last year or 2 years ago, they actually sent a literal blanket that you could wear around like a coat. And so that was also an exciting one. So they know their casual outerwear.
I got that one, and a friend and his girlfriend were over hanging out one night, and I showed it off, and then it was stolen. It was literally taken. So
it's just gone.
Andrew, his name is. Bring it back, please. Take it from your now wife and give it back. But no, I thought you did a great job there, and it's one of the things that I absolutely admire about you most. Right, is you do such an incredible job with your content. You've such a dedicated audience. You've made so many great impacts through your charitable streams, which we'll get into. But what I find so interesting and really appreciate is coming from someone who was a commentator in Call of Duty. One of my favorite things to do was conduct interviews. Actually, Nadeshot, obviously Matt here, was one of the first people I ever interviewed at my first ever event. And I remember being so nervous. He's the face of the Call of Duty, competitive scene.
Absolutely.
Hundreds of thousands of people tune into the stream, and here I am shaking. As at that time I was an unpaid intern. But it takes a lot to have a good interview, and I'm going to say you're like the Oprah of YouTube with interviews.
Everybody gets a car.
Yeah,
I wish.
That's a big compliment.
We should have MatPat on Megan and Harry.
Yes, with the big breaking news.
Man, yeah, right. And stand aside, Oprah. I got it. We're gonna break this story wide open. No, that really means a lot. It's funny that you bring up that interview because I think that is the first and last time that I'll probably be asked to interview Susan Wojcicki for the rest of the year. Anytime she did a blog post about events that she went to, she would bring up, and I went to the Gamer Summit where I was interviewed by MatPat in one of the hardest interviews I've ever had. And to this day, I will hear from, well, and to this day, from other YouTube employees, that interview has gone down as like, oh man, you really put the screws to her, or like there was that moment where you went off book or whatever, and it's like oh my gosh, I didn't realize that asking very simple questions was going to be as controversial as it was.
Wait, can I get some context really quick, Jack? Because
Yeah.
I've gone to 2 different creator summits. They were both in New York. I was not attending the one in Palm Springs. Was that broadcasted publicly? Because normally everything is just internal. So was your interview with Susan just privately conducted with the creator summit, or did they blast that out to the public?
They let me actually air it on my channel. So
wow.
yeah, so unedited, full length. It was actually one of the things that I requested when I was given the opportunity. Was I'm like, hey, the stuff that I want to ask about is stuff that I think is going to be important for a lot of creators on the platform, a lot of people who watch content on YouTube. I think they have a lot of these same questions, and if I'm given this chance to actually honestly interview the CEO of this company, like, I would love to be able to share that information out to the wider public. And they agreed. And so, it is available on the channel. I think it's like MatPat's uncensored interview with YouTube CEO Susan Wojcicki or something like that.
Oh,
yeah,
man.
I actually just looked it up really quickly because I was curious. I mean, the like to dislike ratio is fantastic. But as I scroll down, everybody's calling her a politician. She says, she says so much of what my English teacher calls baseless supposition, or basically saying nothing in 1,000 words. Hey, listen. One of my good friends, Ryan Wyatt, he runs gaming at YouTube. And whenever we're on the golf course together and he says something that I don't like, I always tease him and say, I'm going to call Susan up and she's going to have your ass. Every interaction that I've had with Susan has been fantastic. I have no ill will or anything to say. But was that interaction after the interview? Was there anything that led to a separate conversation? Was she surprised or taken back by some of the questions you had? Because you talked about how it was filtering throughout YouTube and blog posts. Like, oh my God, you were hitting her with some really deep cutting questions. Have you guys interacted post interview, or was that just like one and done? All right, Matt, I'm never talking to you again.
No, actually, we're still on really good terms. I mean, it's not like she and I are playing Among Us together or anything like that. But she's not dropping into my DMs on the regular. But no, we're still in very good terms. She appeared on our charity podcast at the end of last year to donate $450,000 on behalf of YouTube to St. Jude, which is what we were raising money for. She did a trivia game with us. No, it's kind of like a laughable moment, and I think she appreciated the fact that there was a creator, and I'm sure any number of them were, but I was just the one in that moment who was asking a lot of questions that I think were relevant to everyone in that room. And I wouldn't accept a lot of the kind of political answers that were being given, and really wanted to get some honest feedback. But the thing is, right, like, that is the hardest job in the world. And I think a lot of people know from our work, we consult people. We've been studying the YouTube algorithm for years. We've helped a lot of channels with their growth, things like that. People are like, oh, you should run YouTube. Thing is, I would even if I was qualified to do that, I would never accept that job, because that is a thankless job of having to manage the expectations and needs of creators, both big and small, audience members who want their content, the governments not just of the US, but around the world regulating your platform, advertisers who have their own separate needs, and everyone else attached to this. So there's just so many interests all focused in on that one job that it's a really hard position to be in. And I think, Susan does the best that she can, but it's a position that's going to get a lot of flack no matter what you do.
Yeah, that's actually a great point. And I think it shows a lot of self-awareness for you to actually understand on both sides of the fence how many different variables really play into such an important role as the CEO of YouTube. I don't think I'd ever want that pressure as well. And I don't want to harp too much on this interview because I didn't even realize it was going to come up. But I'm just curious, you've been around YouTube since 2009. I'm sure you might have even been watching it before you decided to make a channel. And I feel like there's been so many stages of YouTube and moments and events that are happening on the platform. I mean, a couple years ago, we had Adpocalypse. I mean, you started seeing these drama channels, and you had people like Keemstar popping up, and what I'm trying to think, what's the name? Who's the other guy that had that video with Tana Manju? What was her name?
Shane? Are you talking Shane?
No.
I have no
He,
idea.
he made the video like he was making similar videos to like H3H3, where it like Content Cop. What was his name?
Oh,
Oh,
you're iDubbz.
Yeah,
iDubbz, I was
iDubbz.
gonna say
I
Ian.
just
Yeah.
feel like there have been so many polarizing moments in the
Yeah.
YouTube space, and I'm curious when that interview happened. Like, what was the main topic of discussion? Like, what did you really want to hear from Susan? Just so I know, like, when I go watch this. I mean, it's 38
Sure.
minutes long. I'm gonna go watch this after this interview.
Thanks for the watch time.
Yeah.
No, that was, I think, right around the time of COPPA policies, and
Oh,
so
gotcha.
what does and doesn't define kids content. Verified check marks had just been removed from a lot of channels, and so there was a lot of questions from creators who had been on the platform for a long time. Hey, my verified check mark was just removed. What the heck happened there? That really was a sign of disrespect to me as a creator. Stuff like that. Those were kind of the issues that were top of mind then, and it's honestly to this day. I mean, you bring up the idea of there have been these big pivotal moments in YouTube. The way that we talk about it, our team internally, and the way that we look at it is we're kind of in generation 5, I think, at this point of YouTube. Where like Gen 1, we talk about kind of like Pokemon. Gen 1 was just like viral videos, right? You didn't know individual creators, you just knew the video names.
Yep.
It was your Chocolate Rains, it was your Keyboard Cats, it was
Double
your Double
Rainbow.
Rainbows. Yeah, Double Rainbow.
Oh my God, you guys
Exactly.
took the words out of each
Right.
other's mouths.
Yeah, Numa, all that stuff. Like
Mhm.
those videos are just iconic and just like built the platform, right? And then phase 2 was, hey, the creators, the birth of the YouTuber, which was, hey, if I continue doing the same videos or kind of similar videos, I can really kind of start to build a brand. And so that's where you have like the Jenna Marbles and the Smoshes and the Ray William Johnsons, who, that OG kind of like front runner of what it means to be a YouTuber. Hank Green's, the Green Brothers, things like that. Phase 3 then was when the algorithm shifted and to prioritize watch time. So, it was no longer about how many views you were getting, how many shares you were getting, but it was like, how many minutes are people watching your content? And that's when you had the rise of gamers and vloggers and long form content that was able to be produced fairly easily, fairly regularly, that would keep people on the platform for 8, 10, 12 minutes at a time. Then Gen 4, and then lasted for a good amount of time. That's where animation channels really suffered and things like that. Then Gen 4 was the influx of Viners onto the platform. That's where the Keemstars, the drama channel, started to pick up because with kind of this new generation of creator came a lot of drama attached to them. This was the first generation of creators who grew up with YouTuber and digital influencer as a potential career path. And so they're like, this is my star making vehicle. I'm going to be, the next big celebrity and use these platforms to really grow. And kind of with that came all the drama and stuff like that. And then phase 5, which is I think where we're in now, I don't have a good label for it yet, but it seems to be some combination of content having to thread the impossible needle at this point, where it has to be long form, or at least longer, to still hit the watch minutes, but it has to be safe. It has to be safe from the, is it child friendly? There's no children for this video. Is it brand safe? There's no branding in this one. Is it, still interesting to an audience? Is it creatively satisfying? Like it's also philanthropic in some way. You have creators like Mr. Beast. You have gaming being transitioned in interesting ways with like the Dream SMP and trends there. Streaming is coming in an interesting way because of 2020. I can't figure out what the umbrella is quite just yet for what it all represents, but it feels like we're in kind of in the middle of, or kind of immediately after this next inflection point.
Dude,
Yeah.
I gotta
Sorry,
be
I
honest
talk
with you,
way
man.
too much. You can cut me off whenever, by the way.
No. This is what the podcast is for. This is what I love. What I was going to say was a compliment. I feel like if you needed to have a description as to why you're successful, you being able to rattle off 5 generations and iterations of YouTube. I've been on the platform since 2009, and there's no way I could ever articulate or conceptualize the history of YouTube in the way that you just did that. I'm actually mind blown. I mean, that was very impressive. And I think it's a great point. Like, there's just been so many shifts in what works on YouTube, and I've never really thought about it from like a bird's eye view in that way. And I even think that you nailed Generation 5. Like, I haven't really been paying attention to trends as much as Jack has, just because I've been building this company 100 Thieves for the last 4 years.
Of course.
And Jack is like
a lot of work.
Well, Jack is, I feel like a new level of creator, just because he has shifted his content so many times, and just how he curates it over the last 2 years, and is really trying to play the game of, okay, I have to figure out what YouTube needs from me. But I'll let Jack ask all of his questions. I think we have talked about a lot already, and it's only been a short amount of time, but I got to give a special shout out to Cash App, our presenting sponsor of the CouRage and Nadeshot Show. This show is brought to you by Cash App, and if you don't use Cash App, then fuck you. You probably know Cash App is the easiest way to send your money to your friends and buy Bitcoin, but Cash App does way more than that. Cash App is also the easiest way to try and grow your money in the market with their investing feature. Unlike other investing tools that force you to buy entire shares of stock, Cash App lets you own a piece of stock with just $1. Cash App investing is free to use and free of fees. It's simple to set up. Simply open up the Cash App, decide how much you want to invest in a single stock, and click purchase. And as always, we are stoked to be working with Cash App to support the Gamers Outreach Foundation. Now, when you sign up for Cash App and use the promo code Thieves, THIEVES, not only will you receive $10, but Cash App will also donate $10 to the Gamers Outreach Foundation, which is an organization that provides video games to kids dealing with long-term treatment in hospitals. So remember to use the promo code Thieves when you download Cash App from the App Store or Google Play Store today. Jack, take it away.
Thank you, Matt. Thank you, Cash App, as always. MatPat, question for you.
Oh man.
And then we can move off of this YouTube, this overarching YouTube topic for right now. But I kind of feel like I'm starting to see a potential slight shift in priorities from YouTube, and I'd love to hear your thoughts. Is towards shorts and building a presence of more short, like building out the shorts of the platform. I just launched my shorts channel with very, very little, like absolutely bare minimum promotion. We're gonna do a big promotion around it now this week because I have like 7 videos on there.
Yeah.
I have like 5,000 subscribers, but that's like almost 5,000 just natural subscribers.
Yep.
My first video on that has 300,000 views because it just got put into the YouTube Shorts. People scroll and it hits.
Yep.
What do you think about shorts? They're beginning to launch it. It's in beta. It's going to start, like, you're seeing so many creators now hop to it. Is this now the rise of a potential shorts area on YouTube, or do you think it's just like, oh, we just need to get the TikTok people over here?
Well, I think it's both, right? YouTube recognizes that its bread and butter in the earliest days were those viral video clips, right? That going back to that Gen 1, right? Like those minute, 2-minute, 3-minute videos, people just love that stuff and consume it. And you're seeing other platforms, as YouTube has, I mean, our videos started at like 5 to 7 minutes and now they're 15 plus, right? That's just content has expanded on this platform as the algorithm has rewarded it, as competition has kind of forced it. But YouTube recognizes like there's still a very heavy market for short video, and people love that stuff. And that's why you see, Facebook videos are still around like 3 minutes long. That's why TikTok has had such a huge surge, because people love, that stuff you can just binge. I call it popcorn watching. You can just like, it's like munching popcorn. You're just like watching it and it's great.
Yep.
And so, it was a market that they had and that they've lost over the years that I think they're looking to recapture. So yeah, I think that at this point, there's definitely, this is a sweet spot of short form content creation that if you're one of the good guys who are able to show like value in that marketplace early on, they're going to help make sure that your content is being seen, being consumed, hopefully being subscribed to if you're smart about it. And, you can find success over there, certainly. It's all, the other added wrinkle is that anytime any of these platforms launch a new tool, they always kind of juice it a little bit to help give it some organic reach, organic promotion, like, get people excited to use it, and then it kind of coasts from there. But yeah, no, I think that YouTube, in their efforts to kind of serve as the all-in-one video solution, they've got your long-form videos, they've got your super long-form videos, now they're trying to go back and recapture that short form stuff. And so far, like you said, the results have been pretty good. Like I've seen a lot of really awesome new creators through that shorts tool, and it's really awesome.
I think that last part for me is what resonates the most, because in my mind, even back in the day, I think it was like 4 or 5 years ago, there was always just this theory that, okay, you don't want to put links to other social media accounts in your description because YouTube will peg you and say you're taking people away and off of the YouTube website. And with websites like TikTok now, or apps like TikTok that really own short form, obviously Instagram and Snapchat, they started their own stories in a way. I think YouTube is really just trying to be that all-encompassing one-stop shop for video content.
Yeah.
And I'm curious to see if Shorts actually pays off, because I feel like for short channels to be recommended in your sub box or the homepage of YouTube, it's really going to depend on where people are consuming content. And there just needs to be an entire shift of the way that YouTube delivers. And I don't know what my sub box would ever look like after that, because I mean, I don't even use my subscription box anymore. I remember the era of like sub for sub, box for box, all this.
Yep.
And I'm just curious how YouTube is going to navigate so many different types of content, whether it is 30 seconds long, whether it is 5 minutes long, 15 minutes. It's an interesting world. And I would love to get in the head of like a data miner from somebody on YouTube and their thoughts on it. But it's always great to have your perspective. So, you know what? I know that people have probably asked you before, and you probably covered it in other podcasts if you've done these in the past. But I really would love to talk about the origins of MatPat and Game Theorists, right? Because from my understanding, you know, you started off with your love for theater, and then there was a shift at some point into Game Theorists, and I think that's when YouTube really took off for you. So can you talk about just kind of the genesis or the beginning of your time on YouTube, and where that moment sort of just snap of a finger, okay, now I'm starting to get viewership, this is the right direction that I'm going, and they're giving me this, you know, these positive affirmations that it's working. I would just love to hear about that from your perspective.
Yeah, no problem. So, I mean, really, game theory came out of what was the hardest period in my life, I would say. You know, I had just graduated from college not too long ago. You know, I had a double major in theater and neuroscience. Weird mix, certainly. But, you know, I'm like, oh, I'll figure out if my character has some sort of like oral fixation or something. I don't know. Psychology just always really fascinated me. I had toured around in theater for about 2 years, consistently, like worked in a bunch of different states, did a bunch of shows, had fun, but also realized that theater wasn't the industry that I expected it to be, that it lost a lot of the creativity that I really was expecting out of it, that, you know, Broadway was just becoming Spider-Man Turn Off the Dark and just these really bad shows that I'm like, this is terrible. And at best, I'm going to be like chorus boy number 3 in them, and that's not satisfying. This was also the era of, you know, we were in the middle of a big recession. And so here I am being like, hey, I want to transition careers, and I've got like cool directorial experiences. I have a really good academic record, but, you know, we're in the middle of a recession. No one wants to take a chance on me as this unknown guy with, you know, what they considered no work experience, right? And so I realized that I needed something to prove to potential employers that I was smart, that I was, you know, interesting, that I had diverse interests, that I could use numbers and data and whatever. And so I started Game Theory as the channel, and Game Theory, it was really the first efforts that I had in YouTube as a means of just building out my resume, of showing like, hey, look at me, I can create a project and see it through to completion, and people are going to be excited by the stuff that I am creating. And I can use data and analytics and numbers behind the scenes to help grow that audience and really serve them the product that they're excited to see. It was also like the idea of let's theorize about games was kind of informed from 2 locations. One was there was a web series back in the day before YouTube series on escapistmagazine.com called Extra Credits, where they talked about how gaming could be used as an educational tool. You know, because the researchers for these games are researching historical periods and this and that. So, you know, games are very educational, but they're never explicit about it. And so I'm like, well, what if there was a show that was actually explicit about it, that like said like, hey, in Assassin's Creed, you're playing through X, Y, and Z historical period alongside Aristotle and stuff. Let's talk about that, and let me teach you a little bit about that. So that was part one of where the idea came from, and then the other half of it came from my dad. Honestly, my dad, growing up, encouraged me all the time to like question my assumptions, to always, you know, do the research, think about things for myself. And you know, whether or not he believed in conspiracy theories, he was always really into researching conspiracy theories. And so he kind of passed on that skepticism to me. And so I'm like, hey, is Mario actually the hero? Is Sonic actually as fast as they say he is? And so fusing all of this together, game theory just kind of formulated itself over those first couple of episodes. And, you know, it did eventually get me a job. That job was in helping other YouTube channels grow. And so continuing my YouTube was helpful for my day job. And so I just kind of kept doing it in the background, and it kept growing and growing and growing until it got to the point where I'm like, hey, this is so big, I need to make this into the business that it can be, rather than help, you know, just solely focusing on other people's stuff.
Go ahead, Matt.
No, I was just going to ask, how has COVID been for you? What has quarantine been like? I mean, obviously, I think anybody that works in YouTube full time has the ability to work wherever they need to.
Right.
But I'm just curious how it's affected your personal life, how it's affected your work life. I think it's been fun to watch our company. We have over 140 employees if you count our players and teams, and how that has adapted and shifted. But actually, that's probably a better question. How many people does like your empire employ, or is it just like, okay, I'm doing this with just a couple buddies still, or what is that like for you, and how has COVID been?
Yeah, no, of course. So let's see, we have, what is it, 7, 8 full-time people, so not many, but we have a lot of freelancers who, you know, we offer full-time employment, but a lot of them just like that flexibility of staying freelance. And they are, so in total, I'd say like the team is about 25, 27, between researchers, writers, you know, talent manager, staff, business people, you know, helping out kind of with the business structure stuff. As far as COVID, so it's a decent team, but the core is really, you know, this core 7 who are, you know, have been working together for a couple, you know, for years now, really know each other's ins and outs, and are really like, we're just kind of like that core team of trust. Now, as far as how COVID's been, we were actually unbelievably fortunate with how COVID shook out. We have a 2-year-old coming up on 3 years old now, and you know, he was born. We were working in and out of LA. We had our office space. Everyone was coming in. But the thing is, with the birth of our 2-year-old, we realized that we wanted him to be able to see his grandparents more often. We wanted him to have a little bit more space to go outside and play, and just to be a kid, right? And being a little kid in LA is tough. There's not a lot of space. There's, you know, all of our family, both Steph and my family, are out on the East Coast, so very hard for them to get access to us. And so we were already planning to move to the East Coast before COVID hit. And so we were already in the process of moving all of our operation to remote. We already had, like, all our freelancers, we just do everything online via emails, Google Hangouts, shared links, things like that. But even for that internal core team that was coming to the office every day, we were starting to kind of decouple that and say like, hey, more work from home days, you know, coming in once a week, whatever, in preparation for this move. And literally, as COVID hits, Steph and I are moving cross country. We're seeing the rest of the country kind of closing from LA over and New York down, and we're moving to North Carolina. And so we're like, hopefully we get there and our stuff gets there before, you know, whatever happens to the world at that point.
Yeah.
And literally, like, we had a washer dryer to be delivered. We had to send the dryer back because of issues or whatever. And then within the 3 days that it took to get the new dryer, it went from, hey, we can come in and install this, to, nope, we can just leave it out on your driveway. You got to carry it in and figure out how to install it yourself. So like, it was literally
I feel like you'd be pretty good at that, though.
Yeah.
I feel like you
you'd
could
figure
install
it
a
out.
washer.
No,
I don't
was.
know. It just seems like a really smart guy.
It was a good. It's actually very easy to install a washer and dryer, but I got to learn firsthand. It's much harder to get them up the stairs than it is to install them. Certainly.
So are you
so
full time in North Carolina now? Sorry to cut you off. Go ahead.
No, of course. The idea was for us to be more bi-coastal. Like we still have our place out in California. Yep. All our team, most of the team is still out there. And so our plan was to, swap like every other month or so, to visit each coast. But because of COVID, there hasn't been any reason or the ability, quite honestly, to go back and forth. So we're still kind of waiting for the world to clear up. We're excited to go back. We were out there for our St. Jude live stream. I was out there for shooting a YouTube original series. But for the most part, yeah, we've been kind of the better part of the last year been out here in North Carolina.
So I have a more hold on, Jack. I think for me, it's just out of curiosity. So yeah. I think one thing that I can appreciate about actually having the ability to talk to you rather than watching your videos, I think it's so interesting to hear your ability, and it's one thing that I appreciate a lot when I meet somebody new, their ability to articulate their thoughts like really well. I'm not making brain connections today. That's why I'm like, this guy's so fucking smart. I sound like a babbling idiot. You have a 2-year-old son who's turning 3 years old. And when you bring up your dad earlier and you said he always ingrained in your mind that to question things around you, probably a really smart guy. I'm sure you come from a great parents. And with a 2-year-old son now, I always bust my dad's ass about, hey, you met my mom in band. You guys played musical instruments, but you never put me in like musical lessons. Like my only experience like playing music was with a recorder in 6th grade with Miss Marcella in music class. That was like 40 minutes every week. And it's
classic hot cross buns.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And it's one of the things that I regret so much, right? Because as I got older and got to explore music, I was listening to so much like Elton John and music from the 70s and 80s and just exploring all these genres that I'd never heard because I was listening to hip hop and country music. So it's like when I don't know if I'm ever going to have kids. My girlfriend really wants to, and I always tease her about it. But sure. I feel like I'm going to be one of those helicopter parents like, okay, I am planning every moment of your life. You're going to take golf lessons as soon as you can walk. I'm going to have you play piano. You are going to resent me until you are 18 years old, maybe even like 25. But you're not going to complain anymore because you're going to be flying on a private jet and it's going to be amazing. And you're going to have so many talents. You're going to do anything you want in this world, but you're going to hate me for your entire life until this point. So I'm curious now with somebody who's so successful, are there any things that you and your wife, Steph, have thought or talked about? Like, we're going to make sure he's taking these lessons. We're going to make sure he's set up for his future. We're going to make sure he's doing these activities. Is there anything on your list that this is happening, no matter what you say, you're going to do it?
Yeah, yes and no. So the nice thing is, so even though Ali, his name's Oliver, is 2 years old.
Oh, like, my sister's son's name actually too.
It's a good name. It's a good, solid name. We call him Little Ollie Bean because he's a teeny bean. But he's horrible. For being 2, he's actually very verbal and very articulate. From birth, we were speaking to him like we would speak to a normal adult, right? Talking to him about whatever, whether or not we thought he could handle it or not, right? This is an invertebrate, this is an herbivore, this is what, just the stuff that like you learn in school. And he's real. I mean, kids are sponges, and the stuff that he's able to retain is unreal. And so fortunately, he's just very intellectually curious. And so when we present him new ideas, or like he's coming up with a lot of those new ideas, like this weekend, he was asking like the parts of a motor. And I'm like, I don't like, I can kind of like, this is the camshaft and this is the piston. But I'm having to like look up a lot of this stuff myself just for him, which is crazy. The one thing though, that Steph and I are very adamant about, and that we both wish that we had growing up is a foreign language.
Yeah. I saw that. And so
I think that's so valuable. And if you look at the research, under the age of 7, but especially under the age of 5, if they are exposed to a foreign language in a considerable capacity, they're able to think in that foreign language. They're able to, be fluent in it in a way that native speakers are, and that once you pass that age, you kind of miss really that sweet spot of language learning. And so for us, that's been kind of a big priority.
I want to mention, we would be absolutely remiss if we didn't mention that you hold the record for the highest or most money donated during a YouTube charity stream of $3.3 million, as you mentioned, for St. Jude this past year. First off, what an achievement. Thank you for making such a great impact in the world. But I know you'll say that, like any creator out there, it's your community who, makes this possible and does this incredible thing. But walk me through, looking back on that, what it means to you, and is there another one on the horizon?
Yeah.
You do
Man,
a fundraiser for my education, please? Jesus Christ.
just hang out with us in North Carolina for a little bit, man. I got some sick water towers I can
I'm
show
actually
you.
going to be in North Carolina later this month. My buddy, yeah, his dad's from North Carolina, and he's visiting there for about 2 months. And I'm going to be in North Carolina. I'm not sure how close you are to Pinehurst Golf Course, but I'm going to be around there. You don't have to say, obviously, but
that's awesome. Yeah, no, totally. Like, hit me up. It doesn't matter. I'll just drive out. I'm trying to make North Carolina happen for creators, because we got Mr. Beast out here. We had Rhett and Link. They originated out here. Yep. There's a couple of cool engineering channels out here. Stuff Made Here is a really cool guy who was on that charity stream. He's from out here. I just got Safiya Nygaard, who is one of the top fashion channels. She's out here. So this is it, man. If you're looking for a place, this is the up and coming YouTuber mecca.
What an interesting North Carolina to be when you're like one of the biggest fashion YouTubers or creators on the platform. It just doesn't seem like apples to apples. I don't know, but that's amazing. So go ahead about St. Jude, and I'd love to hear more.
So yeah, with St. Jude, I mean, for us, the idea is like, we've been so fortunate to have so many people respond to what we do, and to have the platform that we have and the success that we've had. And so, it's important for us to use that platform for good, and to, as old man YouTube over here, serve as a positive role model for what up and coming creators can and, hopefully should be doing with their channels or their success moving forward, right? Like, hey, pay it forward. What we do is hard and stressful, certainly, but like, there's a lot of other people out there who have it real rough. And, if we can kind of use our digital influence to, help those people out there, like, we owe it to the world to do that. And, and especially having a kid now, it's been really, really powerful, the mission of St. Jude, to see kids, even before they get a shot, getting diagnosed with literally the worst diagnosis you can possibly get, and having to, learn things like chemotherapy. Like, this whole time we've been talking about stuff that kids learn and how they just absorb information. I mean, going to St. Jude's campus in Tennessee and seeing the wall of children's art where, there's the alphabet of cancer, basically, where kids have all these words up on this wall, words that I didn't know because I didn't need to know them, about like different medical procedures and medicines that they're taking and this and that as part of their treatment. And I was so moved by the fact that I'm so privileged to not have to know this, right? And here are these kids where this is their life. Just it hurts. And so if there's something that we can do to kind of spread awareness and spread goodwill for those kids, like, we can. And to see so many YouTubers, my friends, people that I had never worked with before, but it really admired their work, come together to make that event possible, and really believe in kind of the mission that we had, that was incredible. And to see the audience really respond to what we were doing was unreal. And without question, it was one of the longest, hardest, most fun, and most rewarding days that I've had in 10 years of doing this. It's hard to top. And I think that's the biggest thing, asking about like, where do we go from here, is like, how do you top that? Like, it was so amazing. We're currently in the process of deciding if we're doing it again this year, because I mean, what is a one-day stream was actually a year of planning. We were working with St. Jude from January 1st of that year to make that happen. And so it's one of those things that it's a lot of work and it's a lot of time commitment, but the impact is totally worth it. So
Mm.
we're figuring out whether we can make it happen again.
Yeah, I mean, dude, it's so inspiring. And one of my great friends, Dr. Lupo, Ben, on Twitch, does his huge St. Jude
Absolutely.
charity stream every year. And, always love to support that and love what he does and obviously admire what you've done there. It's so great to see the impact that gaming continues to have. And I think events like this help turn the eyes from so many people on the outside who might not know a lot about gaming, and they see such a great impact from the gaming community or just from the YouTube community in general. And it's totally awesome. So, I'm grateful for the effort that you and your team put forth and everyone who took part in that. I know things like that make such a great and positive impact in what was a tough year. But as we
Thanks, man.
wind down with as we wind down with the podcast here,
Uh,
oh, go ahead, Matt.
I just had a question. I mean, you do
Oh.
Film Theorists. I'm curious. Did you see Snyder Cut?
I'm watching it tomorrow.
Oh
Actually,
my God.
I haven't been able to carve off 4 hours.
Yeah,
yet.
I can imagine that's pretty tough with your life right now.
Yeah, so that's my once Ollie's to bed on Saturday night, then Steph and I are sitting down and just we're plowing ahead.
I think you're really gonna enjoy it.
I've heard good things about it. I'm
did you-
excited to see it.
Did you? So I talked about this on my Twitter account the other day. Every time when Man of Steel first came out, people hated it. I mean, terrible reviews. And the more that I've watched it over the years, it's now become my guilty pleasure. I'll watch Man of Steel probably like 3 or 4 times a year at minimum.
Ouch.
I love the movie. I truly do. Like if so whenever I have an Apple TV and I buy every movie that I even think I'm going to watch because I love rewatching films. And it's
Sure.
I can see it a million times over and I'll still enjoy it just as much as the first time. And so every time I'm scrolling through looking for something to watch in my library, I always come back to Man of Steel. And I feel like the natural progression for the DC universe has taken a lot of different turns, some that have been more questionable than others. But I think Zack Snyder finally getting to complete, his mission and the original vision for this film in Justice League, I truly believe you're going to love it. So I'm not sure if you liked Man of Steel, but for me, that's always like a great reference point in the tone of what you can expect and the storytelling and the origin story that you'll see of the Flash and Cyborg and like truly giving them the screen time that they deserved rather than in the original Justice League, Cyborg was just this small B character that nobody really paid attention to. And then all of a sudden he's in this final fight doing something you don't really even understand. You're going to love it if you like Man of Steel and whatever.
Well, and that's the thing, right? Like, I think what I'm excited about is getting to see, what his vision of this piece was, right? And I think DC has really, the biggest problem that they've had is just like getting in their own way. I think this idea, like the studio itself has so many goals and has like such a, especially back when that movie was released, had such a pressure, or at least felt such a pressure to catch up with Marvel, that they were rushing through a lot of decisions that, was leading them to bad creative products. And, to see, and I think Zack Snyder, as kind of the guy who was helming a lot of this, unshackled from everything else, absolutely had an idea of where he wanted to take stuff, had an idea of how he wanted these characters portrayed and where he wanted them to go. And so, and I think it was a lot of cases the studio's notes that were kind of forcing him to make decisions that he wasn't comfortable with or didn't want to do. And so I'm really excited about this one. And it sounds from the reviews like he's been able to really execute on that vision. And I'm just happy for him to finally be able to kind of put to bed or kind of put a button on what was a really tough part of his life. And, as a creative, it sucks to see your creative vision compromised. And so for him to kind of be able to deliver the product that he wanted this whole time, like, great for him. I'm excited to see what he does next.
With Film Theorists, this is just me trying to scratch my own itch because of the show.
I was going to say Hunter x Hunter, man. I appreciate it.
One of my favorite animes of all time.
Fantastic choice.
I love you. I love you, MatPat. I think you might be my
okay. Real quick before I get to your question, what best arc?
Man, that's a good question. People ask me this all the time, and I always go back and forth. Like, the more I go back and watch like the Chimera arc Tremere Ant arc, I can appreciate it more. But when I first binged it, watching 40 episodes that take place over the course of what seemed like 5 minutes of real time was really tough. I would actually say the
See, I'm putting the pressure on you now.
I really loved the Tower arc. Or no. I like York New. I lied. I like York New. I would love to get like an origin story of the what do they call them? The spiders. What's it called again? There's a name of the group.
Shoot, what is it? The
Phantom Troop. The Phantom Troop.
Yes, Phantom Troop. Yep.
I would love to see more behind Jack. I'm telling you, brother, you have to watch Hunter x Hunter. But I would love I loved any exposure to I have a tattoo right here that is sort of like my love for gangster movies, and I'm from Chicago and stuff. Like Goodfellas, one of my favorite films. But the fact that they tied in like the Yakuza and like the Mafia with the Phantom Troop, and then you got ties with Gon and Kurapika with his entire life. So I think that's probably my favorite arc. What about you?
Me too, 100%. Yeah. I also I think Battle Tower is
I was gonna say
really
the Tower,
solid. Yeah, like I know that you were mentioning the Tower earlier. I also really like that one too. I wish they stayed longer. Like my only problem with it is it's too short. Like who doesn't love a battle arc? And I love that arc, but they hop off of it just as you're getting into like the top tier, which I was like, oh, I want to see what's going on. And then they're like, nope, we're gonna do this completely different thing. But yeah, York New, 100%.
Are you watching Jujutsu Kaisen by chance?
No, I have. That's on my to-do list.
Brother, I promise you, man, you're absolutely going to love it. I would just stick it out past the first 3 episodes because, some people, the environment that they portray in the show just escalates so quickly from episode to episode, and it progressively gets better. And the character arc and the conceptual idea, like the first episode, it made me think, all right, I'm watching the anime version of Supernatural. I've seen this a million times. And then it just takes a step up every other show. And that, I had no idea that you had watched anime. So as soon as you recognized the Gon t-shirt, that made me super excited. But, it's like when I browse through Film Theorists, I see things about Arthur and Rick and Morty and all these other things. Have you ever thought about integrating anime into Film Theorists?
They're in there. We do one every like 3 or 4 months or so. Like the thing is like our audience.
You have
there's definitely a subset of
Dragon Ball's
but we've done Attack on Titan a couple times. We did JoJo. We did a JoJo one about whether you could taste fear, which immediately got demonetized.
I'm sorry about that. That was a stupid question. You have done it.
Yeah, no, not a problem at all. Like I love it, and I wish that we had the chance to do more. But it's one of those things that there's so many great anime out there, and there's so many awesome things that like it's hard for us to talk about the one that's happening right now, but it's cool. Like it's fun to dip into every once in a while, and to me I think anime is able to tell so much more interesting stories than you find anywhere else, right? Like the mixing of genres, the edginess of it, like I just don't know why you don't find those sorts of stories in other media. But man, the creativity that comes out of the anime universe is just unreal. It's great.
And that's actually, I make this argument a lot because me and Jack, I don't know how you feel about it. I'm sorry if we disagree on this, but I've never been a huge fan of Star Wars. I mean, I understand from like a time period in the world when it was created in the late 70s, it was probably groundbreaking and mind-blowing. But for me, when I think of Jedis and the arc of Star Wars and the storytelling, that's where I always come back to. If you watch anime and you just described it perfectly, you have such an unbelievable ability to tell such better and more creative good versus evil stories. And sometimes you find yourself rooting for the villain, and maybe that happens in Star Wars. And maybe my argument, I'm not constructing it the proper way, but I just think the ability to be more creative and just push past the boundaries of like what you can actually do with real life, real human acting. It's unbelievable. I love anime. It's my favorite thing to do. I'm catching up on season 4 of Attack on Titan. So I'm glad we got to splurge on this a little bit. Let's go.
Yeah, me too. All about it. I was very skeptical for the first couple episodes of season 4. I'm like, oh my gosh, let me like refresh myself on the political intrigue of this stupid world and who are all these people. Like, man, was that a tough way to start a season. But man, tell you what, some of the battle episodes that have happened in season 4 just made it worth it, man.
I'm so glad you said that, because I told myself that I wasn't going to start season 4 until it was completed, because I like to binge watch so that I can remember everything. But I was in between calls eating lunch, and I'm like, well, man, I used to watch Naruto all the time when I was eating, and I'm just going to go back and watch one episode, see what happens. Yep. Dude, I got 2 episodes in, and I'm looking around. I'm like, holy shit, I got to pull up a Wikipedia page. I had no idea what was happening. I'm like, what am I watching right now? Did I click on the wrong season, or where am I? So I'm glad that you say it's going to pay off, because now that I'm 4 or 5 episodes into season 4, I can see the backstory that they're trying to tell, and you know, from Rainer's perspective, and I'm excited. But I'm glad that there's going to be a payoff. I get to see more badass Captain Levi scenes, so that makes me excited.
Yeah. Once you start getting into the battles again, it's some of the best, most exciting battles, and especially like payoffs of some of these, you know, characters and arcs that you've been wanting to see, you know, finally get to do their stuff. It makes kind of the slog at the beginning of the season worth it. I haven't finished it. I'm kind of caught up with where they are, but like, yeah, it's worth finishing strong.
Okay. Perfect.
I have no idea what you guys are talking about.
Yeah, Jack, you're on a fly. Every time I talk about anime with our guests, that you're a fly on the wall.
I just don't know what to.
Matt, have you seen Promised Neverland?
No, I have not. Do you recommend it?
The only one I've watched. I really enjoyed it.
I think it's like 14 or 16 episodes. Season 2 just started. Watch it. It's incredible.
Okay, will do. That's an easy ask. Absolutely. Jack, you got to do Death Note. Death Note is the one that sells me on the storytelling power of anime. I have never been so on the edge of my seat with nothing happening. Like, it is so, like, they take the most simple scenes, and the tension in the most simple scenes is so palpable. It's wild. 100% recommend. That to this day is my favorite.
I watched the first 2 or 3.
His best friend's profile picture is a photo of L. And I'm
like,
dude,
I just haven't got the chance to watch it yet. You know,
understand.
I've been playing a lot of World of Warcraft. Sue me.
Oh geez, well, yeah, we'll never see you again. Bye.
I don't ever see him. For what it's worth, though, me and Jack have been living together for 2 years now, and I've tried to convince him, like when we're drunk at like 1 a.m., hey, brother, just watch this first episode of Attack on Titan. Just watch Death Note with me. And then it became, all right, we're hungover now. Like, can I just please turn this on? Then he falls asleep, or he'll go back upstairs. So I'm exhausted all my options. I don't know if it's ever going to happen unless he wants it to happen. So, I mean, you just started reading these incredible books, and you're like, this is probably what it's like to watch anime. And I'm like, yes. But they animate it for you, and it takes everything that you've envisioned in your head and makes it better. I'm telling you, Jack, I know you better than you know yourself. Well, maybe not that much, but you will love anime, and then all of a sudden you'll be exposed. If I had 3 wishes from a genie, I would probably ask him to wipe my memory for 3 of my favorite animes so I could go watch them again. There's nothing better in this world.
That's great. And honestly, to be fair, like, anime is a huge category of media that is hard. You know, if you're an outsider, like, it's hard to find out which ones are the ones I should be watching and which ones aren't, and which ones are worth my time. And, you know, it comes in a whole range of like comedy, dark, super dark, you know, creepy, you know, for all the wrong reasons. So like, it's a hard genre to wrap your head around, certainly, but there's a lot of resources out there. Clearly you have a good spirit guide here that can show you the way. You know, yes. it is
this is what I was made for.
It is absolutely worth your time to explore.
Man, I guess this is my awakening.
This is it.
We will see. I just gotta want to watch it. I wanted to watch Promised Neverland, and I enjoyed it. So there will come a time where I'll want to watch it. But I'm loving my Red Rising book series right now.
Hey, you know what? I'm gonna speak for him, Jack, real quick. Listen, this is how we get him, MatPat.
Okay.
MatPat will do a sub for sub, box for box with you if you watch all of Hunter x Hunter in its entirety.
Bro, if I get
box for box.
I'm just selling his YouTube channel, something I don't even think you can do anymore.
If I get a MatPat shout out, I'm taking a trip to Tahiti after that, dog. I'm set for a few months. Are you kidding me? No, I'm kidding.
All right.
Box for box, man. There you go.
Box for box.
Hey man,
Matt, bro.
Go ahead, Jack.
Yeah, thank you for coming on the podcast, dude. This has been a blast to hear your thoughts on so many things. Get to hear, your origins, and congratulations again on all the success, on having a wonderful family, on a successful move, and now as COVID seems to be, coming to a close here with the vaccines being brought out and distributed worldwide, that hopefully, when life gets a bit more back to normal here soon, we can meet up for a dinner out here in LA and maybe a show together. So appreciate you coming on. Any final words before we go on into the outro?
No, I mean, thank you guys so much for having me. This was a blast. I can't wait to do hey, next time I'm out in LA, we'll all do a group watch of some anime. It'll be perfect.
We got the theater room. It'll be great. We'll make the most of it.
Yeah, and Matt, I'm telling you, when you're out here in North Carolina, hit me up, and then I'm going to show you a great time, and then you'll want to move out here, and then you'll be the latest addition to our Raleigh crew.
Hey, I've been to Raleigh before for a Major League Gaming event, and I actually really did love it. It felt like a city but a small town at the same time. Yep. I'm from the suburbs of Chicago originally, and my best friend Rich, he wants to move to North Carolina at some point. And I'm going to be building 100 Thieves for a couple more years here, but I'm definitely not going to be staying in LA permanently. So yep. I'm trying to find the nest egg, like where do we settle down? And
sure.
So hey man, I'm going to take you up on that because I will be in
I'll
North
show
Carolina.
You a good time.
Yep. All right, man. I will do. Thank you so much for coming on. Thank you for making me feel more dumb than I originally did when I woke up this morning. Man, my brain was not making connections towards the beginning of the episode. And I felt like I needed to take 200 milligrams of Adderall just to think the way that you thought. So I appreciate you coming on. Guys, if you enjoyed this episode, please leave a like on the video and let us know who the next guest should be or anything. Just please give us engagement. We need it. We really, really need it. We're trying to sell more brand sponsors against 100 Thieves. So every little bit helps. I'm like shaking my tin can. Like, can I get some engagement more, please? All right, man. Thank you so much, MatPat. Y'all have a fantastic day. And you too. We'll see you later. Goodbye.
Awesome. See you guys.